consciously about this ever-changing environmental data, but frequently relied on his ability to grasp it immediately when it was needed. He was relying on it now, because it wouldn't do to be caught on the summit of Cleary Peak, the second highest in North Carolina after Mount Mitchell, carrying a shovel and running away from 4 old graves and 1 freshly dug. The local police weren't exactly reputed for their dogged investigations and crime-solving success. In fact, the department was a local joke. The chief was a has-been, big-city detective who'd been ousted from the department on which he'd served. Chief Dutch Burton now led a band of inept small-town officers, yokels outfitted in spiffy uniforms with shiny badges, who had been hard-pressed to catch the culprits spray-painting obscenities on the trash receptacles behind the Texaco station. Now, they were focused on the 5 unsolved missing persons cases. Despite their insufficiencies, Cleary's finest had deduced that having 5 women vanish from one small community within 2.5 years was, in all probability, more than a coincidence. In a metropolis, that statistic would have been trumped by others even scarier, but here, in this mountainous, sparsely populated area, the disappearances of 5 women were staggering. Further, it was a generally held opinion that the missing women had met with foul play, so finding human remains, not the women themselves, was the task facing the authorities. Suspicion would fall on a man carrying a shovel through the woods, like Tierney. Up till now, he had flown under the radar of Police Chief Burton's curiosity. It was crucial to keep it that way. In pace with his footsteps, he clicked off the vital statistics of the women buried in the graves on the summit. Carolyn Maddox, a 26-year-old who had a deep bosom, beautiful black hair, and large brown eyes, reported missing last October, a single mom and sole supporter of a diabetic child. She had cleaned rooms at one of the guest lodges in town. Her life had been a cheerless, non-stop cycle of toil and exhaustion. Carolyn Maddox was getting plenty of peace and rest now. As was Laureen Elliott, single, blonde, and overweight. She had worked as a nurse at a medical clinic. Betsy Calhoun, a widowed homemaker, had been older than the others. Tori Lambert, the youngest of them, had also been the first, the prettiest, and the only one not a resident of Cleary. Tierney picked up his speed, trying to outrun his haunting thoughts as well as the weather. Ice was beginning to coat tree limbs like sleeves. Boulders were becoming glazed with it. The steep, curving road down to Cleary would soon become unnavigable, and it was imperative that he get off this goddamn mountain. Fortunately, his built-in compass didn't fail him, and he emerged from the woods no more than 20 feet from where he'd entered it. He wasn't surprised to see that his car was already coated with a thin layer of ice and sleet. As he approached it, he was breathing hard, emitting bursts of vapor into the cold air. His descent from the summit had been arduous, or perhaps his labored breathing and rapid heart rate were caused by anxiety, or frustration, or regret. He placed the shovel in the trunk of his car. Peeling off the latex gloves he'd been wearing, he tossed them into the trunk as well, then shut the lid. He got into the car and quickly closed the door, welcoming shelter from the biting wind. Shivering, he blew on his hands and vigorously rubbed them together in the hope of restoring circulation to his fingertips. The latex gloves had been necessary, but they hadn't provided any protection against the cold. He took a pair of cashmere-lined leather gloves from a coat pocket and pulled them on. He turned the ignition key. Nothing happened. He pumped the accelerator and tried again. The motor didn't even growl. After several more unsuccessful tries, he leaned back against the seat and stared at the gauges on the dashboard as though expecting them to communicate what he was doing wrong. He cranked the key one more time, but the engine remained as dead and silent as the women crudely buried nearby. Shit! He thumped both gloved fists against the steering wheel and stared straight ahead, although there was nothing to look at. A sheet of ice had completely obscured the windshield. "Tierney," he muttered, "you're screwed." Chapter 2. The wind has picked up and there's icy stuff falling out there, Dutch Burton remarked as he let the drape fall back into place over the window. We'd better start down soon. I need to empty these few shelves, then I'll be done. Lily took several hardcover editions from the built-in bookcase and placed them in a packing box. You always enjoyed reading when we came up, Dutch said. That's when I had time to catch up on the latest bestsellers. Nothing to distract me here. Except me, I guess, he said. I remember pestering you until you put your book aside and paid attention to me. She glanced up at Dutch from where she sat on the floor and smiled. But she didn't pursue his fond recollection of how they'd spent their leisure time in the mountain retreat. Initially, they had come here on weekends and holidays to escape their hectic schedules in Atlanta. Later, they'd come here simply to escape. She was packing what remained of her personal belongings to take with her when she left today. She wouldn't be coming back, neither would Dutch. This would be the last page written, an epilogue, actually, of their life together. She had hoped to make their final farewell as unsentimental as possible. He seemed determined to stroll down memory lane. Whether his recollections of times past were designed to make him feel better or to make her feel worse, she didn't want to engage in them. Their good times together had been so eclipsed by their bad ones that any memory reopened wounds. She steered the topic back to pragmatic matters. I made copies of all the closing documents. They're in that envelope along with a check for your half of the sale. He looked down at the manila envelope, but left it lying on the oak coffee table where she had placed it. It's not right, my getting half. Dutch, we've been through this. She folded down the 4 sections of the box top to seal it, wishing she could close the argument as easily. You paid for this cabin, he said. We purchased it together. But your salary made that possible. We couldn't have afforded it on mine. She pushed the box along the floor to the door, then stood up and faced him. We were married when we bought it, married when we shared it. Married when we made love in it. Dutch, married when you served me my morning coffee, wearing nothing but a smile and that Afghan, he said, motioning in the general direction of the knitted throw on the back of the armchair. Please don't do this. That's my line, Lily. He took a step closer to her. Don't do this. It's already done. It's been done for 6 months. You could undo it. You could accept it. I'll never accept it. That's your choice. She paused, took a breath, brought the volume down. That's always your choice, Dutch. You refuse to accept change, and because you can't, you never get over anything. I don't want to get over you, he argued. You'll have to. She turned away from him, pulled an empty box near the bookcase and began filling it with books, although taking less care with them than before. She was now in a hurry to leave, before she was forced to say more hurtful things in order to convince him that their marriage was, finally and forever, over. Several minutes of tense silence were broken only by the soughing of the wind through the trees surrounding the cabin. Branches knocked against the eaves with increasing frequency and force. She wished he would leave ahead of her, preferred he not be there when she left the cabin, knowing that it would be for the last time. He might have an emotional meltdown. She'd been through such scenes before and didn't want to experience another. Their leave-taking didn't have to be bitter and ugly, but Dutch was making it so by resurrecting old quarrels. Although clearly it wasn't his intention, his rehashing of these arguments only underscored how right she'd been to end the marriage. I think this Louis L'Amour is yours. She held up a book. Do you want it, or shall I leave it for the new owners? They're getting everything else, he said morosely. Just as well throw in a paperback book. It was easier to sell the furnishings along with the cabin, she said. The furnishings were bought specifically for this place and wouldn't look right in any other house. Besides, neither of us has extra space, so what would I have done with it? Move it all out only to sell it to someone else? And where would I have stored it in the meantime?
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.